What's up, everybody? Monday here, February 3rd, and God, the NFL is just a cash cow because it is the best drama show, live reality TV, whatever you want to call it, in the world. Never a dull moment. Absolutely love it. So I'm just popping on because it's, of course, Niner Land has been absolutely bonkers this morning because Myles Garrett came out and requested a trade from Cleveland. Took him long enough, trying to get a future Hall of Famer out of that absolute dumpster fire of an organization. But of course, people started running right to their, like, got to get him, Myles Garrett, future 49er. And in theory, that's great, right? Like, Myles Garrett is a phenomenal football player. Probably still at 29. He's got a few years left in his prime. Absolutely a top 5 defensive player, in the league. Maybe top 5 player in the whole league, both sides of the ball. Guy's incredible. But I think the challenge is when you look at it, it's like, all right, everyone take a step back. All we've heard for the last 6 weeks, right, with the Niners missing the playoffs is, okay, how do we look at the teams that are in the playoffs, the teams that are doing it right? What are they doing? What do they do well? How do you build a sustainable operation and have success long term, especially when you're about to pay your quarterback, right? The Niners have not had to deal with that. Say what you will, they paid Jimmy, but they, the last 4 or 5 years, have not had to pay a quarterback. That's about to change here, hopefully in a few weeks, but it's about to change going into next season. So it is a lot more challenging to just live kind of by the seat of your pants, just pulling off moves like this. And if they can do it, that's phenomenal, right? The Niners have an absolute need on the defensive line, in the pass rush, and especially by stopping the run. I was just talking to somebody on Twitter about it. Like, I totally agree. I get it. But all we've talked about for the last 6 weeks is this team is extremely top heavy. Extremely, right? You've got, let's go through the top contracts off the top of my head. On defense, you've got Bosa. You've got Lenore. You've got Fred. You're probably about to pay Greenlaw. We'll see what that deal looks like. Hargrave's coming off the books. Ward's coming off the books. So you've got 3 contracts there on the defensive side of the ball. On offense, you're paying Kittle. You're paying Trent. You're paying McCaffrey. You're about to pay Purdy, Debo, and Ayuk. So the question just becomes like, okay, well, how many guys can you pay, right? We've seen the Rams operate this way, but eventually that credit card bill comes due. So in theory, I would love to go get Myles Garrett. But you start looking back at, past trades of this magnitude. The closest one probably is the Khalil Mack trade, right? He was 27, so he was 2 years younger than Myles Garrett is right now. The Raiders traded him for 2 first-round picks, a third, and a 6. So you look at that like, okay, so are the Niners willing to give up that kind of capital? Look, you're about to pay Brock Purdy. Like, draft capital is important. You need those guys, and you need to hit on those players. Like, that's how you sustain long-term success. That's how, you look at, I know he's, one of the best ever, and Andy Reid's amazing, but like, the Chiefs have been able to sustain success because they hit on their draft picks. The Eagles hit on their draft picks. They are always ahead of the game. You could say what you will about Baltimore always kind of flaming out. They hit on their draft picks more often than not. The Niners got to get these picks right. And that's how they're going to build this thing back up. The Lions, like, everyone's been all over these guys about their draft picks. Like, yeah, it's super important, especially when you're about to pay your quarterback. So we'll see what they end up doing with that. But it's a long way of saying, yes, of course, Myles Garrett would be amazing in the solid defense and opposite of Nick Bosa. But I think, one, you have to look at the price to acquire. This is now out there publicly. Myles Garrett just, this ain't going to be no, midnight Luka deal where the whole league didn't know about it, right? Where everybody wakes up and the Warriors and other teams are like, wait, hold on, you didn't call us? The hell? This is out there. So what does that mean? You have 31 other teams that are making calls, or 30 other teams making calls on this guy. No doubt about it. Every single team in the league would sign up for Myles Garrett tomorrow. So you got a bidding war in your hands. We'll see what that means in terms of compensation. I also think David Lombardi talked about this earlier. I don't see any way that he gets traded and doesn't want a new deal. Why would he not? he's a top 5. We just talked about it. He's a top 5 defensive player in the league, maybe a top 5, top 10 overall player in the NFL. He wants to get one last massive payday, and I don't blame him. He's had to endure 8, 9 years of just absolute crap in Cleveland. Yeah, he wants to win, but this guy wants to get paid. Like, I would too. So you're talking about massive compensation to go acquire him. You're talking about pay, salary cap that you're going to have to, give this guy alongside, we just talked about all these other assets that the Niners have. And again, like, you start just looking at it, are the Niners one pass rusher away and, defensive stalwart away from like getting back to the Super Bowl? This is where I differ from a lot of people. I don't think they are. I think they are further away than a lot of people think. And a lot of that is derived from, fans that obviously love the Niners, and I don't blame them. That's great. I think there's a few content creators out there who are just like, oh my God, this team is, some good luck, and they're right back in it. I don't see that. I really don't. I am very concerned. And I said this going into last year, and I took crap for it. I'm very concerned that last year was not just a one-off, but rather the beginning of the downfall and like the end of some of these guys. Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams. We don't know if Brandon Ayuk's ever going to be the same. Truly, like one of the worst knee injuries I've ever seen. Maybe it's not a one-off. Like maybe Deebo Samuel, perfect example. Maybe these guys don't bounce back. What then? Like what then? That's why the best approach, in my opinion, is through the draft. And then when you restock the cupboard and you restock all these other positions of need that this team has, in my opinion, then you can go big game hunting again and go reacquire your next Trent Williams or your McCaffrey or your Myles Garrett. But again, I don't think that the team is right there, in my opinion. That's just my take. I think, going all in for Myles Garrett has, I don't know, full on boomer bust potential. Like, yeah, if those guys return to form and McCaffrey's back to offensive player of the year status and Trent, looks phenomenal out there, fountain of youth. Kittle, knock on wood, continues this insane run he's going on. Ayuk comes back, looks good. Debo's got a pep in his step. All these guys are ready to rock and roll like they were 2 years ago. Yeah, Myles Garrett might help you win the Super Bowl. Like, that's very realistic. I just don't know if that's the situation we're talking about here. And again, you could say I'm right, you could say I'm wrong. No one really knows. We'll find out next August and September, but that's where I'm kind of at. So I want them to build through the draft. I want them to go acquire as much good young talent as humanly possible. That includes a defensive end pass rusher. That includes a defensive tackle. That also, however, includes a center. It includes another guard. It includes a tackle, another corner, a safety, a linebacker to go alongside, hopefully, Greenlaw and Warner. This team has needs. Like, that's what people just don't seem to continue to realize. Like, you can't just continue to sacrifice 3, 4, 5 bottom or middle to bottom roster spots on your defense or on your team for just one golden goose at the top. That's what they've been doing. And it got them to a few Super Bowls, and it's been great. But eventually, like, those flowers on the tree begin to wilt, and you have nothing else coming up behind it, like, you've got major problems. So that's all I'm saying. And I'm not talking about like hedging your bets or anything, but I think pairing some of this older talent and relieving some guys like Kittle, relieving some of these guys, like Trent or, Debo, so he doesn't have to be an every down wide receiver, things like that. Like, that's how you end up sustaining success. And again, then you go and acquire your guy when the time comes that can help get you over the top, like they've done before and, will do again. And the last thing is I do really appreciate the fact that, like, who knows if they're really in on it, but like, they're a franchise that's aggressive, right? John Lynch and Kyle, like, they don't screw around. They've got the finances or the financial backing of York, and this thing's a cash cow. I absolutely love the fact that, like, anytime a big time, last week it was T. Higgins. Anytime a big name player comes out and like is somewhat linked, it's like, man, I like the fact that they're in on this rather than like the San Francisco Giants that just comes out and pretends like they're in on every big name player, but they're really not. Like, the Niners truly are. Like, they are hunting for a 6th Lombardi. And I do really appreciate that. I just disagree with the route necessarily where they're at today on how to get there. So that's kind of my 10-minute rant on it. If they go get Myles Garrett and they can somehow improve the offensive line as well without giving a ton of capital up, or they can go sign Drew Dahlman as well. All right, now we're talking. I just don't know if both are possible. And if you have to put a gun to my head and it's like, hey, you can get Myles Garrett or, and let's say Myles Garrett and you can use like a 6th-round pick on a guard. That's not good enough for me. Like, this is just not. Like, to me, it's like, okay, like Myles Garrett, option 1. Option 2 is Drew Dahlman. You could draft another tackle. You could draft 2 defensive tackles, a defensive end, a linebacker, a safety, a corner, and a receiver. I'm taking option B every time of the week. Like, I just am. I know Myles Garrett's awesome, but I'm taking option B. I feel like this team has too many holes to go all in with one player because this is not a tipping point for their franchise. That's just my opinion. I'd love to be wrong. Like, whatever it takes for them to win it all, I am more than happy to come back on here and be like, you know what? They did it. They went and they traded for Myles Garrett. He was an absolute monster. This team turned into the 85 Bears. Purdy, led this offense to a very efficient run, and they did it. They got over the hump. They took down Mahomes, and they won their 6th Lombardi. Be the first one to come on here and be like, holy shit. Like, I was wrong. They did it. Kudos to this regime, but I just don't think that's the route. So hopefully, if this is the beginning of the offseason and we're not even technically there yet, this is about to be some serious fireworks this offseason. And I love it. So hit the thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and follow me. Let's debate, let's talk, and let's keep rocking and rolling through this offseason. Peace, everyone.